Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good anytime that you're joining from, depending on your time zone. My name's Leah Smith. I am your moderator for today's webinar, and a couple of housekeeping notes here. We are on a recorded line. Welcome to today's Unifying Fragmented Organizations webinar. I'll be your moderator again. My name's Leah Smith, and we have two amazing speakers coming to us from ListEngage today, right? To talk about Data Cloud. A few other housekeeping items though before I get into formal introductions here. First, this recording will be shared after today's webinar. Likely closer to end of week is when you'll see that pop through into your inbox. So be on the lookout from an email for us to share this recording afterwards so that you can forward on to friends who are unable to attend. Secondarily, there is a questions and answers section. You should be able to submit your questions throughout the course of this webinar. We will be answering those as time allows at the end. And as always, if you have questions that we weren't able to address during the webinar, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, send us a message, send us an email. The open lines of communication are there for everyone to leverage. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get into some introductions. So the experts that we have on the line today, I couldn't be more thrilled to introduce them. Honestly, it's all but short of saying a real honor here. Julie comes to us with years and years of experience and expertise guiding customers, not only in the Salesforce ecosystem, but the larger scope of marketing strategy holistically. Julie is our Director of Strategic Consulting, and honestly, I don't know if there's a better person in the ecosystem to tell us about how to get customers aligned to a business value and strategy with CDPs, Data Cloud, the whole gauntlet of it. Secondarily, we have an amazing expert specific to Data Cloud in Jason. Jason is our Salesforce Data Cloud practice lead with years and years and gosh, hundreds of experiences from customers leading the path for people implementing technology and enabling true digital transformation. And to give us a preview of what Julie and Jason are going to be talking about today, we've got a couple of big ideas here. Now, we're not necessarily going to go in this order, but these are the three big buckets that we're going to focus on. We're going to talk about the fragmented organization on a high level, right? What does that mean? What is a fragmented organization, and how does it impact not only marketers, but those end customer experiences? Then we're also going to talk about the era of CDP, right? Something that we hear a lot about, CDP, CDP, CDP. I feel like it's something that comes through the airwaves daily now. And then thirdly, we're going to talk about the unified profile itself, what that means and why it's critical for marketers and end audience members today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass this baton over to our fragmented orgs and leave it to Julie to give us some more information here.
Great. Thanks, Leah. I'm really excited to be here to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is Data Cloud. And before we get into the Data Cloud component, let's pause for a minute and talk a little bit about fragmented organizations. How does an organization become fragmented? I have been in the Salesforce ecosystem for more than a decade. I've been a marketer longer than that. And I've never encountered an organization that says, hey, I'm trying to be fragmented, right? It's something that is symptomatic of other things happening in the organization. So there are three main ways that we see this fragmentation occur. So the first would be acquisitions, right? If you've got a large business that is acquiring smaller businesses, that large business already has an established data model. They already have an established data flow, ways that they reconcile new customers coming in, systems that they use to interact with those customers. They've already figured it out. Well, now they're in a situation where they've acquired a smaller business. That business, although it's small, they've already got their way to do things. They've got it figured out as well. So it's this situation with, what do we do? How do we bring this all together? Secondly, we have what I think of as a tiered approach. We have a business that has a large parent umbrella and then smaller subsidiaries underneath. So think about like a franchise model, or a common example might be a higher education institution where there are schools and programs underneath this larger university umbrella. And there are different approaches to this from a management perspective. Management might say, okay, this is the data model, these are the systems, everyone has to conform. But it's also very common for management to have more of a laid back approach to say, you all are doing very different things, you get the job done, and you can use whatever systems and data model that makes sense for you, thus fragmentation. And then thirdly, and all of the marketers on the line will be able to relate to this one, I'm sure, is the Wild West. So this is a situation that occurs when you've got, your head of marketing or your head of customer service or what have you, and they've got goals to achieve. They've got certain campaigns and initiatives that they've got to get done. And rather than asking for permission, they're going to beg for forgiveness, right? And so that might mean buying lists. That might mean adding a point solution or a system to get a specific thing done. And again, we're in a situation where what they've done now doesn't match with the greater organization. It's all, done for the best of intentions, but this is where fragmentation occurs. And the fragmentation itself is a difficult situation to be in, because what it means is that the organization can't operate really efficiently. We can't have interdepartmental collaboration very well. The company doesn't have a good understanding of what's working, what's not, because all of our data is in different silos, all of our reporting is in different silos. We might not even know who our customers are in an extreme example. And then, the worst outcome of this is the customer experience being impacted. On the less bad end of the spectrum, you've got customer communication that is a little disjointed, not quite branded consistently. But on the worst end of the spectrum, you could even have a situation where the customer is getting information that conflicts from one group to another group. So fragmentation really puts everyone in a difficult situation. So if you go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about what fragmentation means and how does CDP fit in. All right, so enter the customer data platform, or the CDP. Now this is a phrase that was coined 10 years ago, and what it represents is the evolution of your traditional customer data warehouse and your CRM technology kind of coming together to create this new product category that was originally created to solve a marketer's problem. So a marketer needs to know who their customers are. They need to have current customer information, be able to create lists and send messages in some cases in real time. And this was traditionally a big issue. CDPs were created, and how this ties to fragmentation is that in the pre-CDP era, businesses essentially had two options to solve for this fragmentation problem. Continue to work in silos, right? And this is what a lot of organizations did. So basically, I'm kind of running a small business within a larger enterprise, but I'm getting things done, and I'm probably not being very efficient with how I'm doing things. My leadership doesn't really have a sense of where things are, but I'm getting it done. Or alternatively, because that's certainly not the best case scenario, you could decide to do a data migration or a platform consolidation. And for those who have been through that, you know that is a difficult proposition, right? It's very time consuming, it can be very costly. So it's a difficult decision, right, to move forward with that. So when CDPs came along, that gave organizations an alternative. The CDP technology, which harmonizes data from different disparate data silos and then allows marketers to take that cleansed data and activate it and to execute it on different channels. that meant that, okay, we don't necessarily have to consolidate platforms. We can merge our data using this tool, and that gives us some alternatives. In addition, right, because it's a marketer's tool, it gave those early adopters the ability to target audiences that were better and smarter and well thought out, to personalize content better. And now, as in the last 10 years, as CDP has evolved, we're seeing different CDPs layer in artificial intelligence functionality. We're seeing Salesforce rebrand their CDP as Data Cloud, because Data Cloud is really more than just a marketer's tool. It absolutely can help marketers do the things that I talked about, but there are also powerful applications for areas like commerce, for sales, for customer service. And so CDP is really giving those fragmented organizations some good options. And to expand on the Data Cloud offering from Salesforce, I'll turn it over to Jason next to go a little deeper there.
Yeah, so I'd just like to go over kind of an overview of what Data Cloud does. So this will be a pretty basic overview. I'm assuming most people here are familiar with Data Cloud. But what we're demonstrating here is that we have feeds coming from the left, right, from Marketing Cloud Engagement, from Service Cloud, from Commerce Cloud, and from Marketing Cloud Personalization. As you can see, they are the same person, effectively, but a little bit different in each of the feeds, right? So in the traditional model that Julie was describing, these would all be treated separately, right? So we bring those into a unified profile in Data Cloud. As you can see, there are 3 different email addresses, right? There are a couple of phone numbers, and there's 1 physical address. And those get tied into the unified contact points within the unified profile in Data Cloud. And then, there will be additional logic that's applied on top of this to kind of decide which of those is the best for a particular communication for this unified profile. But it essentially ties all of that together. And this pattern of tying together data that's from different sources, but related to effectively the same individual, that extends across, for example, the engagement data, right? So you would be able to pull together data around whether this person had received an email or other communication from multiple disparate systems. It's not dependent on just data coming from one system. You can just look at the unified profile and the DMOs associated with it and get a picture of that entire history across all of the tools that the organization has a history in. So that's an overview of what Data Cloud does, and kind of shows you the framework for doing that unification.
Fantastic. And thinking out loud here about unification, Julie, I'm hoping you can take us down a path to further understand what that unified profile means.
I'm glad you asked, Leah, because I just happen to have a slide on that. Yeah, so unified profiles, right? Jason mentioned that when he went through the Data Cloud explanation, and it's something that we hear a lot about. When I work with clients, I always like to point out that a unified profile in itself is, it's a feature of Data Cloud. It's a powerful feature, but it isn't a use case. It isn't, a Data Cloud in itself has a unified profile in itself doesn't have an inherent value. The value to the organization comes when we take those unified profiles and we execute on a use case from those unified profiles. So for any organization thinking about Data Cloud, is it right for me? How does it fit in? What does it do for me? I encourage you to think through what those use cases are for your organization. What are you unable to do today because of data silos? What does the future look like with Data Cloud? And there are three major categories where we see those use cases come to life. So the first is save dollars. Who doesn't want to do that, right? We all want to save money. We talked earlier about how CDPs and data cloud can be an alternative to replatforming. Also, just think about the fact that data cloud is a data harmonization engine. So potentially putting data cloud into your MarTech stack may mean that you can streamline your tech stack altogether and save some money there. And then another category is just the ability to work and plan smarter. So when you have data silos, it's really difficult to think about budgetary planning, think about, you know, what's working, what isn't working, how do we do more of what's working. And when you've got all of your profiles unified, now it's suddenly much easier to plan smarter. And then finally, you know, I'm a marketer. My favorite category is improve ROI. And we all know that sending the right message to the right customer at the right time on the right channel with the right relevant messaging is going to make your customers feel better about doing business with your brand. You're going to have better customer retention. Ultimately, you're going to have better ROI. So those are the major use cases or categories of use cases to consider. There's certainly a lot more that we could go into, but at this point, I think it would be great for Jason to give us a demo of Data Cloud from the perspective of this last bucket, right? So a higher education, the demo he's prepared is a higher education institution who's looking for Data Cloud to help unify profiles in order to ultimately do messaging better to their students and their prospective students and alumni, et cetera. So I'll turn it over to Jason.
Hello. Yeah, so what we have here is just kind of a sample data cloud architecture for an example of what we're walking through in our demo here. And so I'm going to walk through this and explain things slide by slide. If you have questions about that, you know, please feel free to put it in chat and we'll address them as we can. So this is a use case that came to us through a higher education customer. And as Julie mentioned earlier, higher education tends to have a lot of silos. You know, those different organizations within the school tend to operate independently, and so it's pretty common that they are trying to make some effort towards becoming more unified. And so this is going to show you how you can use Data Cloud to help facilitate that. So as you can see, we have the standard connector with S3 coming into Data Cloud. That's bringing in data from 2 external ESPs. And then it's also bringing in data from Redshift and another unnamed external data warehouse. We also have the standard data bundles coming in from Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. And then, of course, the integration with Marketing Cloud brings that engagement data in as well. And then we are activating to Marketing Cloud for communications, and ultimately that is the goal, is to eventually use that single tool for the activation for all of this across the board, right? So the long-term goal is for that organization to be able to use a singular tool, being Marketing Cloud with Data Cloud, for all of their communications. And then you can also activate things back to S3 through that connector, and those can be picked up from S3. S3, if you're not familiar with it, is basically a repository for files. So it can be referenced by Data Cloud for picking up things from folders or buckets, and it can also drop things there. And so once those are dropped there, they can be consumed by other products as well. So that's kind of a summary of the overview. So here I'm going to show you a view of all the data streams we have coming in. As you can see here, we have alumni, students, and prospective students coming through for excuse me, for Amazon S3, and that's data that we are using to kind of build the profiles for the constituents of this organization. You can also see we have those feeds through S3 for the external ESPs and the external data warehouses. So those are being brought in. We also have feeds coming from CRM. So you can see Sales and Service Cloud are being brought in here. There's two different org IDs. If you look at the the letters after these feeds, you can see there are two separate org IDs being brought in. And then finally, we have Marketing Cloud. So Marketing Cloud data is also being brought in here.
Hey, Jason, just to clarify, so in this higher ed example, you've got a data stream, which is data coming into Data Cloud. And the reason that it's coming into different S3 buckets is because the data management at this higher ed institution is happening in different systems across the university, right? So that is the way that in this example, all of that data is entering into Data Cloud, correct?
Yes, that's how the data is entering into Data Cloud. Yeah.
Perfect.
Do you have any further clarifications, or if we?
Well, I'm just tying it into fragmented organizations, right? So at a university, you've got schools, you've got programs, they all have data, and the way that you're getting it into Data Cloud is through native connectors in Salesforce tools, or if some of that data lives in a tool that's not a Salesforce tool, doesn't have a connector, you can use an S3 to get everything together into one spot. So that fragmentation, is all coming together to defragment using Data Cloud.
Understood. Yeah. Yeah. So back to this view, you can see those are all coming through as data streams. And then I'm going to jump into the mappings for one of the data lake objects. I'm not going to take you through each one here, but as you can see, we are bringing the data from one of the external ESPs into a DMO called email engagement. So this is part of the standard customer 360 data model. And as part of that, as long as we bring everything into that standard data model, we can then do unification and segmentation based entirely off of what's in that data model. So it becomes agnostic to kind of the originating source system, right? So as long as all of the data for email engagement ends up in the email engagement DMO, it doesn't matter if it came from Marketing Cloud or if it came from an external ESP, it's available to us in the same way. And then I'm going to move here into calculated insights. So a quick overview on what a calculated insight is. A calculated insight is essentially a way to build data around the data that you have in Marketing Cloud. And so it might be that you have a lot of data from different systems. In this case, we have a lot of send data from different systems. And so you might want to get an example of what does that look like for somebody, right? So that's not something that you're necessarily going to be able to tell without running a query. But if you build a calculated insight, the calculated insight applies to that unified individual, and it allows you to look at what the metrics are for that person. Right. So in this case, we are putting together the customer ID with the email count. And then if I step into the next slide, this is just a view of the code. So if you don't understand SQL, that's okay. But essentially, if you look at the where line here, what it's trying to show you is that the email engagement DMO is being referenced, and we're checking for data that has happened within the last 90 days. So it takes the current date and removes 90 days from it, right? And that's where we have the cutoff for what we're looking for within this calculated insight. So it's a pretty simple calculated insight overall. And so if we go and look as we run this, we can see this is segment creation, right? So in segment creation, we've selected the SIN count 90 days calculated insight, and we've looked for somebody that has an email count that is greater than or equal to 20, and that's within the last 90 days, and we're getting 3 people. Right, so to get an example of why we're seeing that, I go over to query workspaces and I run a query, and this is not something that everybody needs to do necessarily, but just to see who are those people. So we run a query and we see that there's one individual here that's received almost 2,000 emails in the last 90 days. So this is likely a red flag for the organization. Even 128 is more than an email a day. So that person, maybe not intentionally, is getting too many communications. The person above them, there's something strange going on. Maybe it's a bot. Maybe there's some kind of system that they're trying to game by signing up for so many things, but there's something going on with that first one, and the second one likely needs to be addressed as well. So this is an example of things that the organization might want to look into further, so they can take these identifiers, look at these people, see what's happening there, and then we will move into the segment creation again. We're going to change from greater than or equal to 20, and we're going to go less than or equal to 5, right? And so as you can see, we change that, and then we click save, processes for a minute, and it updates, right? So now we're seeing 161 come through. So in this example, these are people that you might want to see why they're not getting as many emails, or you might want to activate this to try to increase engagement for these people. So this is showing you, it's very simple and very quick to kind of change what you're targeting with the calculated insight, and it enables you to use this to better issue communications to the people who need them and take action where people don't need them. And so I'm going to go into the activation. So this is an activation that's been set up for a send count of 90 days. And as you can see, we've got this activating over to Marketing Cloud. And let's just step in. So we're activating on email address. And you can see here, attributes included has unified individual ID, email count, and email address. So that email count is coming from our calculated insight. You can see how it breaks down here. So the email address with contact point email is required for an email activation to Marketing Cloud. And then on the unified individual, we have the unified individual ID as well as that email count from the calculated insight. And then when we go over to Marketing Cloud, this is the data extension that results from the activation. So we've got a data extension called 90-day send check. That's the result of the activation coming over from Data Cloud. And you can see here it's subscriber key, email address, and email count. Again, the count is from the calculated insight. The subscriber key is going to be that unified individual ID, and then the email address is, of course, the email address. I don't jump into the records to show you the specific data because doing so would be showing you PII data on here. There are actual email addresses in there, so that's what we have for kind of the walkthrough. So I'm going to step forward for questions here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. What a phenomenal picture that you just provided. Julie, did you want to layer something on top of that before we go to questions?
I was just going to say what I love about this example is those on the line who have been in email marketing for a while know that it's incredibly difficult historically to get a sense of cadence and frequency for a list like that. So to just see you kind of quickly pull that up in Data Cloud, I think just is a great illustration of the power of the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, speaking to the marketers on the line, we do have a first question and context framing for everybody on the line, marketer or otherwise. We had a few folks submit questions prior to this webinar, things that were just burning a hole in their keyboard, so to speak, that they really needed an answer for. And so this first question came from a marketer who's trying to figure out, okay, I've got a really crowded MarTech stack already. Do I really need Data Cloud? You know, Julie, I think I'd love to hear your answer on this one.
Yeah, and it's a question that we do get a lot. At ListEngage, we consult with a lot of clients around Data Cloud. And the quick consultant answer is it depends. But the longer answer is also it depends with some more context. It really does depend, right? What we would want to do is a real assessment of your tech stack overall to understand what the different components of the tech stack are there to do, how the data is flowing. We'd want to understand what pain points you have. We'd want to understand if there are any pieces of your tech stack that may be sunsetting or updating. We'd want to understand what your initiatives are for the data and the profiles. So it's really a difficult thing to speak to without doing that thorough evaluation across strategy and across the technical. You know, it may be that Data Cloud could help streamline your tech stack, but we'd really just want to dig under the hood and understand more.
Yeah, and I think that makes total sense, Julie. Dwelling on that tech stack note, perfect flow over into our next question. So another marketer on the line here for question 2, who is in a situation where they're like, gosh, okay, when I'm looking at the tech stack and I'm thinking about my BI tool or my ESP, like, is that replaced with Data Cloud? Jason, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so no, Data Cloud definitely does not replace your BI tool or your ESP. I would say it enhances them. So it enables you to get more out of your existing tools. Julie, I don't know if you want to expound on that some.
Yeah, I'll expand on that a bit. I think, you know, I understand why this question comes up, because as technology evolves and additional features and capabilities are added to solutions, you might look at a demo and go, wow, like Data Cloud has really cool reporting built in. Maybe I don't need my BI tool anymore if Data Cloud can do that for me. But you know, we're big proponents of having the right tool in your tech stack to do the right job. And Data Cloud does have some really cool reporting, but it isn't a BI tool. It isn't a data visualization tool. So you'll want to make sure that you keep the right tool in the right place for the right reason. But totally agree with Jason. Data Cloud will help to harmonize your data such that when your data is pushed to your BI tool or your email tool, that you get better results.
Amazing. And on kind of an expansion note here, honestly, from existing tech stacks to the conversation of emerging technologies overall, question 3 here comes from a marketer again who is trying to understand the impact from Salesforce's investment in AI technology and how that's going to iterate and change Data Cloud. I would love to hear a feedback loop here from Julie. Julie, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think it's early to say on this. AI is being developed and enhanced rapidly. We're seeing a few things, you know, that were announced as recently as last month at Dreamforce, where Einstein features in Data Cloud are going to be able to do things like generate smarter segments based on what the AI engine is telling the tool. So we're going to see things like that, but it is early, and we're going to see a lot more in the future. Jason, do you happen to have your crystal ball there? Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so I think, you know, anything that we say here is going to be somewhat speculative. But I think Data Cloud is certainly going to be foundational for anything that AI is doing in the future with Salesforce.
Yeah, and speaking of kind of like Data Cloud, I'm pivoting around here a little bit. For question 4, we've got someone who submitted a question with the context of already having a CDP in place. Is there still a benefit for them to consider and or start the process of really evaluating Data Cloud? Jason, I'd love to have your POV here.
Yeah, so I would say that there is value. So Data Cloud started as a CDP, but it's evolved to become more than that. And there are things that are possible in Data Cloud, especially within the Salesforce ecosystem, that you're not going to get out of another CDP. So I have worked with multiple customers at this point that have both Data Cloud and another CDP. And they, may or may not migrate off of the prior CDP, but they still could not accomplish all of their use cases with that CDP. And having Data Cloud enabled them to be able to do what they want to do without having to involve their IT organization as much. They don't have to necessarily write code every time they want to make a change or get things to fit into a release cycle. So yes, I think there is a benefit to Data Cloud even with the CDP.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'd also like to add that the CDP product category is very broad, right? There are a handful of characteristics that CDPs all have in common, but there are so many CDPs now in the marketplace that they're all very different in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. So if you already have a CDP in place, chances are it's doing something very specific for you and it's doing its job. But to Jason's point, there are things that Data Cloud is going to be able to do that it's entirely likely that your existing CDP can't also do. But that's where, again, you'll really want to do that deep analysis of your tech stack and make your decision based on that.
Yeah. And, I've got one more big question. So this is the last pre-submitted question. And once we wrap up here, we do have quite a few questions that have been submitted from folks on the line. But before we get to those new questions, I want to ask you both, what is your advice to organizations preparing for Data Cloud implementation? Jason, I'd love to get your POV here and Julie's as well and hear from you both. Julie, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, yeah. So I'll start with kind of the business and strategy side and turn it over to Jason for the technical side. So, from my view, at risk of being a broken record, do an assessment, plan ahead, plan carefully. Data Cloud is a very powerful tool, and it's one that is going to transform your organization. So it's not something to be, purchased without a lot of thought and planning for the implementation itself, but also for the human element, right? So it's a very technical tool, but behind that technology, there are going to be users within your organization who need to embrace Data Cloud and who will be running Data Cloud. So don't forget about the critical change management side, making sure that you have that executive alignment on the digital transformation, making sure that you've communicated the value proposition. Here's why we're doing this. Here's why it's important. Making sure your people have a proper training. So change management is something that's really important and isn't always considered when thinking about a tool that's sort of labeled as, oh, that's for the technical people. We are so passionate, in fact, about change management and particularly how it relates to Data Cloud that we have a webinar coming up on this topic. So stay tuned to LinkedIn and to your email inboxes for more information on that if you'd like to hear more on that great topic. And then Jason, what are your thoughts on preparation for a Data Cloud implementation from the technical side?
Yeah, I would say that, most organizations, when they come into this, they struggle to find what data they have and where it lives and who owns that, right? And so a lot of time can be spent up front kind of wrangling the organization together to get all these teams to work together and agree that their data can, be brought into Data Cloud. And sometimes that involves like legal teams. So the more of that kind of groundwork that can be done up front, I think the easier it's going to be to actually dive in and start getting things done, because you can hit a lot of red tape in a larger organization when you start to implement Data Cloud. So I think that's very important. If you have a team that manages your data, get them involved. If individual teams own the data, which would likely be the case in the situation that we're describing here today, then make sure all of those teams are aware and at least begin to understand how Data Cloud works and what data they can bring to the table to allow the integration and everything that you want for unification to become available. So those are kind of the beginning steps. Also, if you have any documentation around like an ERD or multiple ERDs, those are very helpful to get an understanding of the bigger picture. So if those exist, gather those, and if they don't, maybe get some of those created.
Phenomenal. Thank you both for these kind of like pre-submission question and answer portion. And we've got a couple of, honestly, quite a few really good questions here that have come through during the course of our conversation. So right now, everybody on the line, we're going to transition from the pre-submission questions into the questions you gave us during today's webinar. So to kick us off, we had a couple questions trickle in on the demo, Jason, that you gave us, and that really nice picture of a clear and concise use case for unification. So a couple of questions here, salt and pepper for you. The first one, data stream list showed a number of failures. How is this handled? Do you have to go back to each stream or feed and debug and redo, or is there some kind of way to automate that?
Yeah, so let's go back to the data streams while we're discussing that. Yeah, in these cases, so if you look at the ones that have failures, you can see that the number of records for total records is actually 0. And so there is no action to take there in these cases because there wasn't any data to be gathered. So it's part of a standard bundle. So when you set up the integration and you bring those bundles across, these get configured automatically. So even though there is not any lead or case data in this particular CRM org, it's bringing those data streams in, and they just fail when they execute because there isn't any data to retrieve. So what will happen is they'll continue to fail. It doesn't cause any type of issue within Data Cloud, but once data is available there, it will get picked up, and you'll see those numbers increase.
Awesome. Next question for you, Jason, while you've got the demo portion up. Quote, the last slide had a subscriber key as the identifier. Where does the contact ID fit in here?
Yeah, so when we say contact ID, I think we are usually either talking about the identifier coming from CRM or the identifier for the contact within Marketing Cloud. So contact ID is not really something that we would use in the context of Data Cloud. In this case, the subscriber key is going to be that unified individual ID. And so, it's not going to be the contact ID from CRM. It's not going to be the contact ID, so to speak, subscriber ID from Marketing Cloud. It will match the contact key or the subscriber key from Marketing Cloud because that's what's being created as part of this. But if you look, I think I have a screenshot of it here. So yeah, you can see these individual IDs that are part of the system here. So this is the ID that would be the subscriber key being in that activation sent over.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you, Jason. And I know we do have a few more questions here that we just don't have time for today. So for these questions, feel free to sync back with us later. Open lines of communication always. We will be sending this recording out to you ASAP. We thank you all for spending your morning or afternoon with us and hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.